Hello, my name is Benji. We're here today with an interview of an artist. We're doing these interviews to give you some inspiration for the Get Creative Art competition that this church is putting on. It's a competition for young people, and you can enter with poetry, with art, or with photography. And the theme is, what is God saying? To give you some ideas, I'm going to be chatting to artist David Moore. Hello, David.
Hello.
Perhaps you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the sort of art that you like to make.
Right, well, let me just start saying I'm pretty old now. I'm 83, but I still carve wood most days of my life. And I started by accident when I was working in East London. We kind of lassoed a URC church that was on its last legs, and helped it find its way, and it's now become quite a successful project. But en route to that happening, I went to an evening class of wood carving, and it was run by a Chilean refugee, Santiago Bell, and he was a genius, and he kind of just opened up eyes in my fingertips in a way. It's just a different way of just being me. And so that was a kind of an exploratory journey rather than telling people what I already knew. I was in uncharted territory, and suddenly it all began to kind of happen, slowly at first, very slowly, but then I made some big pieces. And we had an alcoholic recovery program, residential, and I made a large kind of plaque to hang on the wall, which was symbolic in a way, and it was convoluting enough to do some people's heads in, but also to keep people like saying, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? But it was a story of rehabilitation, from blankness to openness, or closeness to openness. And I was quite surprised at this, because like I was being tutored by this wonderful artist, but I was doing it. And so I began making stuff after stuff after stuff. And as soon as I left London, as I did shortly after this, and went to work in Bradford, I started all over again. And my garage the car never went in there because it became my workshop. And I entered some competitions, and I went on courses, short courses, you know, a day, a Saturday or whatever, and began to kind of build up my confidence. Now, en route, you have lots of naivety and lots of mistakes, lots of errors, lots of cuts, but you know, that's the way it is. And now I've been doing this now for 20 or 30 years, and I kind of just make stuff, and people don't like it. I don't care 1 minute. I don't care what people think. It is me making my confession to the world in a way. And like, carving wood is me talking to God. Now, some people don't like that. It's not precise enough. It's not kind of crisp enough. It's not, you can't get your hands around it. But, if you can't talk to God by doing things, you're never going to talk to God in prayer. It's my view.
Yeah.
And so I opted a long time ago for a very secular lifestyle. To be kind of as secular a person as I could be, while working within the discipline of the Methodist Church. And I managed to achieve it. And so I've just continued making things and encouraging other people to make things. And I have friends now who are doing various forms of art, but and they reference me as their starting point. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
But I still, at my great age, still want to do more. So I my ambition is to do a minimum of 4 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
at least 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's quite a lot for an octogenarian.
And you were saying that I think it was really powerful. You were saying you're not worried about what other people think about your art. But for you, how do you feel that you know you've made a good piece of art? What makes you think, oh yeah, I've really got I've done it well there?
I don't know how it works, but when it has worked, you go, yes, it's somehow inside, you know. But I've got like exhibitions I've been to, people, sorry, I've had of my work, people have written in the visitors book very complimentary things, and I don't like looking at them. I think I'll become too vain. But it's a hard thing to do, to be honest with yourself in a way in which other people can see almost whether you're being honest or not by looking at your work. So that's a bit of a challenge, but it's one I enjoy.
Yeah, that's really great. And where do you, I mean, for your kind of, when you're kind of starting out making a sculpture, where do you feel that how do you get these ideas, and what do you do when you don't have any ideas?
Well, I've got a friend called Richard Smith. He worked for us in London when I was in two of my jobs in London. He was still a student at the Imperial College and doing chemistry, and he was a kind of a church volunteer. He was a member of the Church of England then, and he and I did a lot of stuff together. Him being a scientist, we organised our work of the soup kitchen, like keeping detailed records of homeless people. So we had big files. And people used to consult us at times. Have you got any information about this patient? Because he's in hospital, he's, you know, semi-comatose, but he's a homeless man. We'd look up, and often we would have something to say to them, like some of them times, where a relative might be. So it was a kind of living on the edge of one world, homelessness, and living on the edge of another world, which was called church, because in that time in East London, church was very minimal. Very small congregations, but most of our work was kind of community work and social work, and it fitted like hand in a glove for me. It was just, I felt at home there, and I somehow got converted yet again, because I'm a lifelong absolute West Ham supporter, you see. And indeed, last time they won the cup, I was invited to the banquet. So that was, so like there's pluses and minuses if you're open to the world. And so that's been the kind of the marker of my ministry, I think. It's been open to the world.
Yeah, taking inspiration from everywhere.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And also having a commitment to doing it that way. Yeah. It's not something you choose to do one day and not the next. You've got to find a route, your own route map, to find. You can't really, as far as I'm concerned, I couldn't just start and do this and stop. It's a lifelong journey for me, and well, it has been now since I don't know, I left London in 1970 something or other, and so 1980 something or other, 83 I think it was. And I've been other places since, but I've always managed to have a bench. Now in retirement, I've built a studio in the garden, a big studio. So I've got 2 rooms. I've got a dirty room and a clean room. And I just make all the time, really.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's such in my experience, like doing some drawings and stuff, it's just about keeping going a lot of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't have 10 new ideas a day, because they'll all bump into each other and you'll get nowhere. So you've got to kind of be selective what you're going to do. And so Richard Smith and I, we talk on the phone about, because he's in Essex and I'm here in Milton Keynes, and we talk, and he'd send us some draft drawings, and I say, oh, I don't like that and that and that, and we alter them. And like, because he draws, but he has no concept of working with wood. So I have to take flat two-dimensional drawings and turn them into three-dimensional realities, which is a tricky thing to do, but very much a great deal of fun.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love that idea of, you know, that kind of working with and bouncing off each other.
Yeah. So at the moment we're working on a boat, and it's 1 meter long, and it's we called it, the World Council of Churches has this logo of the boat on a rough sea, and it's called the Ship of Faith. We're making the Ship of Doubt.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of it about. And so we got this boat full of really odd bods. And we're starting with Adam and Eve. So what do you do with them? Well, you don't put any clothes on them. Something, you know. Now that's not popular within the church, but you know, children like it. And so on and so on, you know. And we've got people doing all sorts of things, or just being, you know, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody this, that, or the other. And we're trying to say, for most people, whether they're committed to the Christian religion or any other religious faith, it's never a simple journey. You know, it's never a simple journey. And I think that forms of evangelical Christianity, which really are about a total denial of the world, while earning a very good living within it, many of them. So, like, you know, I want to challenge some of those expectations, because if I could challenge one expectation, it would be the wealth expectation. It's a very long-term, I think, a very negative thing. If we can earn huge sums of money, why can't we just share it? You know, why do we have to keep it to everything to ourselves?
Yeah.
Like I was saying to you on the phone, like, I've got all these art books. You can see them on the shelf behind me, at the top shelves, and you know, I'm never going to read them again and again and again. I got a set of 3 volumes on Picasso. I mean, it's just wonderful just to, you know, spend a day or two, or take one on the beach with you when you go on holiday. But like, how can you not just kind of feed off of that material? Because people think, oh, Picasso, oh, you know, strange man. But I just think he was a genius.
As a kind of a final question, you kind of talked a bit about how, you know, when you're sculpting, you feel like you're talking to God. But could you talk a little bit more about like how you feel your art helps you connect with the world? Because you're talking about how you take a lot of inspiration from the world, how it helps you connect with other people, and you know how it helps you connect with God, or together.
I don't think I set out ever to connect with God. I just found God connected with me.
Yeah.
Really. I had a very happy but hard beginning in life. It's my first 15 years of life. I suffered with a form of epilepsy, which I grew out of in adolescence. I suppose when my sex hormones kicked in, it rooted them out. But, you know, I had a difficult start in life. Chronically dyslexic, spelling, writing, grammar, nightmare. But other stuff, very good at making and doing stuff. So to enter a profession where you are expected to have personal knowledge about almost everything, nonsense it is, but people expect you to know a lot of stuff. And one way of learning stuff is to do a lot of reading and a lot of studying. And I was never made out to be a student in an academic way. I learned to recite enough to get through the hoops, but I never went more than that, really. But then I found my other paths in life. So one of the strongest paths in my life was discovery of the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made a bust of him. And he's like, because by the time I was making this, my father, who was a great hero of mine, was suffering with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to do a bust, because you need to do that once in your lifetime. And if you can make one of a relative, then that's even better, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't face making a sculpture of my father.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose Bonhoeffer, and I went away on a 5-day course and produced this head of Bonhoeffer, and people recognize it as Bonhoeffer.
Mm-hmm.
Those who know what he looks like. You know, he died, when I was a little lad, really. But it's like I have in another room in this house a shelf full of books all on Bonhoeffer.
Mm-hmm.
And now my concern is what I'm going to do with them. Or another concern, my age, what's going to happen to all my tools? So I've got to start thinking about how do I choose to end my active life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just disappearing down the plug hole of time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean suicide or anything like that, but I mean, how do I kind of offload stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying to my friends, I don't read none of these books anymore. Mm-hmm. I've read them, some of them 3 or 4 times each, for different reasons. But I can't stay still.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to keep moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you're moving forward consciously towards the end of your life, it's still an exciting journey.
Yeah.
That's, you never know. I don't know what's around the corner in terms of me or Dorothy, my wife. But, we just keep the journey going. And neither of us would want to think, well, we've done it all now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't. And I don't know what I'm going to make next after this blessed boat, I've no idea what, but it will something. And I'm just looking around. I look at a piece of wood and think, So I could carve all day for 5 years and I still wouldn't get through all the wood I've got. So, it's decisions.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing of all is getting the church to take my art seriously. Mm-hmm. Really. Mm-hmm. Because Methodism has a vocal history. Song, preaching. Mm-hmm. It's not artist. It's not abstract. Mm-hmm. Kind of audio, language stuff. Mm-hmm. Not playing with ideas. Yeah. Massaging them into different shapes or sounds and stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, to some extent the music does, but it's not avant-garde music, hymns, are they, by and large? And so it's being a Christian in the world today and not being a pain in the butt to other people and being a Christian and having a vocation, which I would reword as a purpose, or unfolding purpose. It's a serious thing. And alongside all my carpentry and woodworking sculpture, for longer, before I even started, I've been writing poetry. Because poetry is an easy thing for dyslexic people to do. You can put words together in odd shapes and forms and sentences, And I learned to write poems before I learned to write sentences, serious sentences in a way. And it took me to my late teens before I was confident enough to show any piece of writing to anyone. But I had the good fortune somewhere along the line of my first boss taking me to meet these two elderly widows. Both have been teachers, and they shared a house. And they sent me off with a ticket to London to go to an exhibition in Regent's Park one summer.
Wow. Yeah.
And like with a ticket for the train and a ticket to get in and some money for me to get some food. And I go off and see it, and I went to this exhibition and I was like levitating in one. Yeah, and like I didn't see that as a religious experience. It was just kind of the best of being human. Now, if the best of being human is anything, it has to have some kind of spirituality to it.
Yeah.
But it's a spirituality that doesn't need shouting about.
Yeah.
It is there in it.
Yeah.
People find it in you. In most of my ministry, some of the people I met in Methodism who were like local church members, but mostly were people who didn't shout about it. They just did it in one way or the other. I like when I watch some of these demonstrations and stuff on the TV, there are people who are doing what I was doing in my own way 50 years ago. Because demonstrations aren't that new. They're around a bit. And, you know, and we've all not been on the edge of being arrested.
Wow.
And if a Christian community doesn't have people who are on the edge of being arrested, it's lost some of its essential troops. Because if you haven't got those cutting edge voices being heard, where are you going to learn it? Where are you going to learn it from the world? And that's why many people, in my experience, I've met, are real good companions to me, but they walked away from the church long ago, which is great sadness to me. But I understand why. So we've got a lot of work to do. And particularly with the kind of younger generations, because by and large, over the whole country, the Methodist Church is not as strong as it once was. It's not the only game in town. Because when I when I was a young man, we didn't have television. Now it's hard to imagine. You can't imagine that. Whole life up to I was whatever I was into my teens without television. But so it's finding a way to be an advocate for the Christian virtues and the story of Jesus without banging people on the nose with it. So that's and so that really means you end up being ambivalent a lot of the time. I much prefer to say when I'm asked a question, well, what do you think? Rather than giving an answer. Because that, if you say, what do you think, and they begin to say things, then we have a conversation. Then we can both learn something then. Because I don't know it all. No, nobody does. And sometimes it's the kind of the smallest voice that carries some of the greatest wisdom. So, but, and also I think the other thing is that we're living at the present time in a pretty funny time politically. You know, I make no bones about it. I've only ever voted Labour, except for when I fell out with my local MP for 2 elections or 3 elections. I voted for the Communist Party. I knew he'd never get in, but it's just a protest vote. And like politics is a real part of life, and it's a force for good, and it may be a force for evil in every country, not in just ours or the bad countries, as we might want to call them. It's a real thing, and like Methodism had a history of many people being engaged in trade union movement, in politics and forms. And when I grew up, I think about a third of all the local preachers in Bath were Methodist local preachers in Bath were highly political.
Well,
and so I grew up listening to sermons about, you know, this or that or the other, but it all, without them ever having to say it, you knew what they were saying. And that's a very different way today than it was then. And but nothing stays still, but yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much for chatting to us. It's been a pleasure to kind of hear your thoughts on all of this. Yeah, thank you.